All right, so get this. We're diving deep into the story behind Louis Vuitton. And you know what? It's way more than just flashy handbags and all that luggage you see around.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You think luxury, you think Louis Vuitton, but the roots of this brand, super humble.
We're talking rags to riches, wars, family drama, all that good stuff. We're going beyond the label to uncover Louis Vuitton, the man, and the brand's insane journey over the years.
Buckle up. It's quite a ride. And, there are some bumps along the way, like their activities during World War II. A bit of a controversial chapter.
Yeah, definitely a complicated part of their history. But first, can you imagine this? You're a homeless teenager, sleeping in the woods. Next thing you know, you're crafting custom boxes for the Empress of France. Talk about a glow up.
Speaks volumes about his ambition and resilience, wouldn't you say?
Totally. And hold on tight because we're going to get into a hostile takeover that would make even Wall Street blush and the rise of this business mastermind. He's kind of quietly one of the richest dudes on the planet.
Bernard Arnault. Such an aura of mystery. Fascinating how he's managed to stay so private despite his success.
Right. Okay, so let's get into it. Louis Vuitton, the man himself, born back in 1821 in rural France. No electricity, no running water, none of the stuff we take for granted.
And importantly, no formal education. Childhood was all about working on the family farm, worlds away from the luxury he'd go on to create, right?
It was telling me. And to make things tougher, his mom died when he was young. Things weren't exactly rosy with his stepmom either. So picture this. 13 years old, he decides, I'm out of here. Runs away to Paris.
225 miles. On foot, let that sink in for a minute. 3 years, walking, doing odd jobs to eat, sleeping in the woods. The determination.
That journey alone tells you a lot about the guy. This wasn't someone who backed down from a challenge.
And those 3 years, not wasted time. He was constantly learning, picking up practical skills from all sorts of craftsmen on the road. Metal, stone, fabric, wood, almost like unknowingly prepping for what he'd do later.
Like his own personal apprenticeship program, out there on the open road. Then he finally gets to Paris. Becomes an apprentice to a box maker. Works his way up and boom, lands a job making boxes for the Empress of France herself.
Talk about a career trajectory. But Louis Vuitton wasn't just any box maker. He was always observing, looking for problems he could solve.
And boy, did he find one with luggage. Back then, all the trunks had rounded tops. Good for keeping the rain out, but you couldn't stack them.
Exactly. And that's where his practicality shines through. He sees this inefficiency, this problem, and what does he do? Comes up with a solution.
Flat top trunks, made from canvas. Lighter, sturdier, and most importantly, you could stack them. Genius, right?
Revolutionary for travel. Suddenly, luggage was both practical and elegant.
Yeah.
By 1859, business is booming, orders coming in from all over. But then war. Franco-Prussian War, 1870. Louis Vuitton has to flee his home, loses his shop.
Talk about a setback. But like you said earlier, resilient.
Oh, yeah, rebuilds. And this time, he's smart about it. Sets up shop right by the train station at a grand hotel.
Savvy move. And in 1872, that iconic striped beige canvas is born. It's amazing how a simple design can become so recognizable.
It's more than a design, though, isn't it? It represents a whole era, a lifestyle, and it's still going strong today.
Absolutely. But there's a part of the story we need to address. It's a bit of a tough one. World War II. This is where things get ethically tricky for the company.
Yeah, it's a dark period, that's for sure. To survive the war, they ended up collaborating with the Nazi regime. Raises a lot of questions.
It's complicated. On the one hand, it kept the company alive, but on the other, there's no getting around the morality of working with a regime like that.
It really makes you think, what would you do in a situation like that? Everything you built at stake. It forces us to confront those tough choices people had to make during those times.
It's definitely a reminder that even the most iconic brands have stories that aren't always glamorous. Anyway, after Louis Vuitton died, his son George took over. His focus. Global expansion, and fighting those pesky counterfeiters.
Counterfeiting. It's been plaguing luxury brands since the beginning, right? So fascinating. This human desire for those status symbols speaks to their power, I guess.
And it's a battle that still rages on today. But back in 1896, George Vuitton came up with a weapon, that iconic LV monogram.
Genius move. A tribute to his father and a way to combat counterfeiting, all in one. And the impact. Still going strong, just a few letters, but instantly recognizable around the world.
The code for luxury, you could say. But even with all this success, the Vuitton family, they face new challenges. George dies, his son Gaston has to navigate World War II.
And that's when Gaston's son-in-law, Henry Racamier, enters the picture. Now, this guy was a businessman, through and through. He takes Louis Vuitton public, and sales go through the roof.
This is where Louis Vuitton goes from family business to global powerhouse. And this brings us to, honestly, one of the most dramatic chapters in the whole Louis Vuitton saga, the hostile takeover and the rise of Bernard Arnault.
Oh yeah, the merger with Moet Hennessy to create LVMH seemed like a great idea at the time, but it set the stage for a power struggle that changed everything.
Henry Recamier brings in Bernard Arnault to help with the merger, but guess what? He ends up being outmaneuvered, loses control of the company. A bitter battle, from what I hear. Talk about boardroom drama.
Arnault, they call him the wolf in cashmere. He's a master strategist. He saw the opportunity and took it. LVMH, now a luxury behemoth, over 70 brands under its umbrella. This guy understands luxury.
And he does it all while staying incredibly private. Makes you wonder what drives someone like that, you know? To achieve such massive success but stay out of the spotlight.
Some say that mystery is part of his success. It's an interesting thought. Is calculated secrecy a powerful business strategy? Or is it just a personal preference? And how does it affect how we see him in LVMH?
Great question. It definitely adds another layer to the story, doesn't it? And even with all this drama happening behind the scenes, Louis Vuitton remained at the top of the luxury game.
Absolutely. 1997, Marc Jacobs arrives. New era. Ready-to-wear lines, collaborations, pushing boundaries while keeping that heritage intact. Not an easy thing to do.
And he pulled it off. Look at the Supreme collaboration. They went from suing each other over copyright to partnering for massive profit.
Perfect example of how luxury brands can stay relevant, you know? Embrace those unexpected partnerships, tap into street culture. Says a lot about how the very definition of luxury is changing.
Adapting, evolving.
Right, exactly. But amidst all this success, got to consider the ethical side. Louis Vuitton, they're fiercely protective of their brand. Lawsuits, anti-counterfeiting measures, some might say they go a little overboard.
Shows how far they'll go to protect their image, their intellectual property.
It does make you wonder, though, what are the downsides to that level of control? And does it really benefit the consumer?
Good point. Reminds us that every story has multiple sides. And it leads to a big question, one we'll explore further. Is Louis Vuitton, with those sky-high prices, truly worth it? The world's most valuable luxury brand, sure, but what are we paying for? Just quality craftsmanship, or something more, like status, a sense of belonging. Think about your own values. What would make such a huge investment worth it to you?
This question goes beyond fashion. It's about our psychology, our relationship with stuff, the meaning we attach to material possessions.
Louis Vuitton, it's like they're not just selling handbags, they're selling a lifestyle, a dream.
Powerful dream, too. It fuels that desire, that aspiration, drives the entire luxury market.
And let's not forget the craftsmanship. Louis Vuitton, known for that meticulous attention to detail, quality of materials, the skill of their artisans.
Absolutely undeniable. Each piece, crafted with such care. Rare to see that in today's mass-produced world. It's almost like owning a piece of art, a tangible expression of heritage and expertise.
And that level of quality takes time, right? I read somewhere that Louis Vuitton employees train for like 18 months to 2 years before they can even make something on their own.
It's true. That apprenticeship model, it goes way back. Ensures that consistency, that level of quality that's so hard to replicate.
Like they're guarding a secret, passing down knowledge through generations.
Adds to the allure, wouldn't you say? It's not just a product, it's a legacy.
Totally. But even with all that heritage, that craftsmanship, the question still stands, is it really worth it? Could you personally justify spending thousands on a handbag?
It's a personal decision, of course. Depends on your values, your financial situation, your priorities. But for some, it's not just about the bag itself. It's about the feeling, the statement it makes.
A way to express yourself, to say, I belong here.
Like a secret handshake, a subtle signal that you're part of a select group.
And sometimes it's just about wanting the best, no matter the cost.
That's the allure of luxury. It goes beyond what's practical. It's about indulging in the exceptional, owning something rare, coveted.
And let's be real. There's a thrill in owning something that not everyone can afford. It's a bit of a badge of honor, isn't it?
Plays into our basic desire for status, for differentiation. We want to stand out, be recognized. And luxury goods, well, they can be a shortcut to that recognition.
But it's interesting how the whole idea of luxury has changed over time. It used to be all about exclusivity. Now it's embracing streetwear, collaborations with artists, a more inclusive approach.
Reflects the changing times. Luxury brands, they're not content to just cater to the elite anymore. They see the power of youth culture, of inclusivity, of reaching a wider audience.
The Supreme collaboration is a prime example. Streetwear, a symbol of cool, partnered with Louis Vuitton. brought both brands to a whole new audience.
Smart move. Captured the zeitgeist. Blurred the lines between high fashion and street style. And the financial success. Limited edition pieces were reselling for a fortune.
Shows the power of marketing, of
Yeah.
creating hype, tapping into that desire for something unique and scarce.
It's a reminder. Luxury is about perception as much as quality. It's about storytelling, creating an aura of desire.
And Louis Vuitton. They've mastered that. A brand that's always evolving, adapting, but staying true to their core. Craftsmanship, heritage, luxury.
A fascinating case study in brand building, in storytelling, in the lasting appeal of luxury. It all started with a homeless teenager with a big dream. And now it continues to unfold, captivating the world with that blend of heritage, innovation, and that undeniable allure.
And who knows what the next chapter holds? Will Louis Vuitton keep dominating the luxury market? Even more radical collaborations, new ways to redefine luxury for a new generation.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure. The Louis Vuitton story, it's far from over. Ambition, resilience, innovation, constant reinvention. It's a story that keeps fascinating us, challenging us, making us think about our own relationship with luxury and the things that truly matter.
And on that note, let's move on to something that's often overlooked, but crucial to understanding the full Louis Vuitton legacy. The ethical dilemmas, their wartime dealings, the ongoing fight against counterfeiters.
A side of the story that deserves a closer look.
Get ready, because we're about to dive into the less glamorous but equally important aspects of this iconic brand.
It's funny, isn't it? We always focus on the glamorous side of a brand like Louis Vuitton, all the glitz, the glamour, but there's this whole other side to this story, one that's kind of hidden.
Right, those skeletons in the closet you were talking about. And Louis Vuitton, yeah, there are a few we need to talk about.
We got to start with the elephant in the room, right? Their collaboration with the Nazis. During World War II, dark chapter. No way to sugarcoat that.
Really makes you realize that even companies, associated with beauty, luxury, they can get tangled up in some pretty awful stuff. It challenges the image we have of the brand, that's for sure.
Absolutely. They've tried to downplay it over the years, but the evidence is there. They even went so far as to open a store in a hotel right in Paris that was known to be, a Nazi hangout during the occupation.
It's hard to wrap your head around, Makes you think about all the impossible choices people had to make during wartime. Survival or your principles. It's a dilemma that never goes away, and Louis Vuitton's actions, they kind of force us to confront it.
It's a reminder that history, it's rarely simple, messy, complex, and often, pretty uncomfortable to really look at. But we have to.
Okay, let's move on to a different kind of ethical challenge. Counterfeiting. Feels like Louis Vuitton has been battling this forever, right? Over a century of trying to stay one step ahead of the copycats.
Counterfeiting is like a constant headache for these luxury brands, a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the internet. It's made it so much easier to make and sell fakes.
It blows my mind, Entire factories dedicated to pumping out fake Louis Vuitton bags. The scale of it is just incredible.
It's not slowing down either.
Yeah.
Really speaks to the power of the brand, I guess. The lengths people will go to have that logo, even if it's, a fake.
And Louis Vuitton, they do not mess around. They have entire legal teams dedicated to hunting down counterfeiters, shutting them down.
Yeah, they're known for being aggressive. They even sued Google for showing ads for counterfeit products.
Wow, that's something else. But I guess it shows how serious they are about protecting their brand.
It does raise questions, though, about their tactics. Some people say they're too quick to, sue small businesses, individuals, people who maybe don't even realize they're selling fakes.
So there's a gray area there. It's not always black and white who's in the wrong.
Exactly. Intent, it's not always clear. Are these people deliberately trying to trick customers? Or are they just caught in the middle? And are Louis Vuitton's lawyers really trying to protect consumers? Or is it more about keeping the brand exclusive, maintaining control?
It's complicated, for sure. Makes you wonder, who's really benefiting? The brand? The consumer? Both.
A question worth thinking about. And it ties into this bigger discussion about the ethics of luxury in general. Is it right, ethically, to spend crazy amounts of money on a handbag when there are people out there who can barely afford basic necessities?
It's a question we all got to grapple with. Makes us think about our own values, right? What matters to us? What's essential? What are we okay with splurging on? Where does luxury fit into all that?
It's about finding a balance, I think.
Yeah.
Enjoying those nice things without, losing sight of the big picture. Luxury, it's a privilege, not a right.
That's a good point. And it brings us back to what we were talking about earlier, how the whole idea of luxury is changing. It used to be all about being exclusive, inaccessible. Now it's more inclusive, collaborating with streetwear brands like Supreme, bringing in elements of youth culture.
It's an interesting shift, isn't it? Shows how younger generations are thinking about luxury in a new way. It's less about those traditional status symbols and more about, I don't know, authenticity,
Mm.
individuality,
Hmm.
social responsibility even.
It's not just about owning the thing anymore. It's about the experience, the brand's story, what it stands for.
Exactly. Consumers, especially younger ones, they're more aware. They want to know where their stuff comes from, how it's made, what the brand believes in.
And Louis Vuitton, they've had to adapt. They can't just rely on their history, their craftsmanship. They have to tell a story that, well, that resonates.
They have to show that they're not just stuck in the past,
Right.
that they're evolving, looking towards the future.
It's a tricky balance. Staying true to who you are while at the same time staying relevant, appealing to a wider audience without alienating the people who, well, who got you there in the first place.
Lots of luxury brands are struggling with this. And Louis Vuitton's approach, it's been interesting to watch, pushing boundaries,
Hmm.
taking risks, reinventing themselves.
Those collaborations with artists like Takeshi Murakami, Jeff Koons, they're bringing something new to the brand. Art and fashion. Feels innovative, but still true to their heritage.
And it's worked. Got people talking, introduced them to a whole new audience.
Shows they're not afraid to experiment, to step outside that comfort zone. They're willing to challenge what we think of as luxury, redefine it.
Risky, but
Hmm.
it's paying off. And other brands, they're watching, taking notes.
It's like Louis Vuitton is writing the rule book for the future of luxury. They're not just following trends, they're setting them.
That's what makes them so fascinating. Always moving, always evolving, always pushing the limits.
So even with all the controversy, the ethical questions we've talked about, Louis Vuitton, they're a force to be reckoned with.
No doubt about it. Their story is far from over. Ambition, resilience, innovation, constant reinvention. It's a story that keeps drawing us in, challenging us, making us think about what luxury means to us, what really matters.
And with that, I think it's time to move on.
It has been a fascinating deep dive, hasn't it? The world of Louis Vuitton.
We've covered a lot, from their beginnings to, well, to global domination, the controversies, the innovations.
The evolution of luxury, the power of branding, those ethical dilemmas that come with building an empire.
And we've left you with a lot to think about. What does luxury mean to you? Is it worth the price? What about the brands you support? What are their stories?
Keep exploring. Do your own research. Dive deeper into the history of Louis Vuitton. See what speaks to you.
Because ultimately, the meaning of luxury, it's something we create. It reflects our values, our priorities, what we want out of life.
The Louis Vuitton story, with all its twists and turns, its contradictions, it gives us a way to examine those things. Really think about them.
So we hope this deep dive has made you curious, maybe challenged some of your ideas, giving you a new perspective on this iconic brand.
And who knows? Maybe it'll even inspire you to do your own deep dive into the world of luxury, the stories behind the brands that, well, that shape our world.
You know, it's really something how a brand like Louis Vuitton can spark these big conversations about luxury, ethics, and even like our own personal values.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they've become a cultural icon, right? Way beyond just fashion.
And we've seen how that symbolism, it can cut both ways. You know, I mean, their choices, like those wartime collaborations, and how fiercely they protect their brand, it's definitely sparked some debate.
It's important to remember that even the most iconic brands, they're human creations at the end of the day. They're going to make mistakes.
Right. No brand is perfect. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting, I think. We're not just looking at the surface, you know, the pretty stuff. We're getting under the hood, looking at the complexities.
Yeah, seeing the full picture, the good, the bad, and using that, to form our own opinions.
And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. We've gone through their whole journey, right? Their rise, the bumps along the way, the choices they made.
We've dug into those bigger questions, too, about luxury, how it's changed, how it affects society, the ethical side of it all.
And we didn't shy away from the tough stuff, like their wartime collaboration, working with the Nazis. That was a difficult one to talk about. But it's part of their story. We can't just ignore it.
Absolutely. We have to acknowledge those dark chapters if we want to understand their legacy, right?
Yeah.
And it lets us have these more, I don't know, nuanced conversations about accountability. What choices did businesses make, especially in those times?
It makes you think, you know, no brand is above history, above ethical dilemmas.
And that's something to keep in mind no matter the brand, right? Not just Louis Vuitton. What do they believe in? What are their values? Do they line up with yours?
It's about being a smart consumer. We get to choose who we support, and we should do it with our eyes open.
Exactly. Which brings us back to the question we asked before. Louis Vuitton, with their prices, their sometimes questionable choices, would you personally support them?
It's a tough one. No easy answer.
It's a personal decision, for sure. Depends on what you value, your priorities, how much you can spend.
But I think we can all agree that the Louis Vuitton story, it's a fascinating one. Ambition, resilience, innovation, and that enduring appeal of luxury.
It's a story that, in a way, reflects our own desires, our fascination with beauty, with status, that constant search for meaning in this crazy world.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not just about facts, right? It's about exploring ideas, challenging what we think we know, maybe understanding ourselves a little better along the way.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this journey into Louis Vuitton.
And that you'll keep exploring the stories behind the brands that, well, that are part of our lives.
Because those stories, they hold these insights into our values, our history, the whole ever-changing story of human culture, really.
And that's a wrap for this deep dive into Louis Vuitton. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and until next time, keep seeking out those little bits of knowledge that make life a little bit richer.